This Torah class is brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.
Okay, good morning, Rabbi. We're learning Sefer Ezra. We're in the last parak, parak Yud. We already did these psukim 2 weeks ago, but last week we interrupted for Pesach Sheni. So let's just quickly get back into the thick of things. Basically, Ezra returned in parak Zayin, pasuk Ches. The pasuk says he returned in the 5th month. Okay. So now, a few months later, Ezra finds out about the terrible masa the Jewish people are in that they had intermarried, and instead of lambasting the people and throwing stones at them, he came up with a very clever, diplomatic, effective means of reprimanding the people, and that is, he went to the Beis HaMikdash and he davened openly crying, and that really stirred the people to gather to him. So let's just read and translate the first 10 psukim or so. We did it last time, but let's just get back into the thing. Ezra. When Ezra prayed, and as he said the confession, boicha, crying, and supplicating before the house of God, gathered to him from Klal Yisrael a very large gathering, Anoshim enoshim viladim, men, women, children, kivachu ha'am harbe becha. The people cried very much. Now these are the women, we pointed out, whose husbands had sort of abandoned them for their new Jewish, new Goyish spouses. Okay. Vayan Shechanya ben Yechiel mibnei Elam, vayomer le'Ezra. Shechanya ben Yechiel from the Bnei Elam responded to Ezra, and he said, Anachnu ma'alnu b'Elokeinu, we were treacherous to our God. Va'noishev noshim nachuyos, and we maintained foreign women, me'amei haaretz. V'yata, and now yesh mikveh liYisrael azos. Now the Jewish people have hope. And very important, the Malbim pointed out, why now do they have hope? Because until this point, despite the fact that Jews were intermarrying, the Chachamim, the Gedolim, did not have the authority. They were not invested with the power to reprimand them and to do anything. However, now that Ezra is returning, and Ezra is coming back with the power invested in him by the king of Paras, by Daryavesh, and Daryavesh appointed Ezra in charge of all religious affairs, so now Ezra has the opportunity to change things.
There was no one in charge before he came?
So we pointed out there were people in charge. You had
not a strong stand.
Right, they had Nehemiah, you had Yeshua Kohen Gadol, but as we learned on Friday, Yeshua Kohen Gadol himself, his children intermarried. That's why in Sefer Zechariah, Perek Gimel, you have the Nevuah of Zechariah. He sees the Satan trying to accuse Yehoshua Kohen Gadol, and he was accusing him of allowing his children to intermarry. And the Rebbe Shalom said, back off him, because he already got his punishment. And what was the punishment of Yeshua Kohen Gadol? He was thrown into a fire together with Achav. Achav was consumed in the fire, and Yeshua Kohen Gadol's clothing were consumed in the fire, but he wasn't.
Achav was still alive?
Which Achav was that?
This is another Achav.
Wasn't the one from Eliyahu's time?
I don't know. Probably not. It was which Achav was it? A different one, maybe. Okay. But now we're learning Parak Yud, Pasuk Gimel. V'yata nichras brisol Elokeinu. And now let us seal a covenant to our God, L'hoitzi kol hanoshim v'hanoel mehem, to remove all the women and everyone born from them, ba'atzas Hashem, based on the advice of the council of God. We pointed out the Torah, we pointed out from the Zohar HaKadosh, the 613 mitzvahs are 613 eitzos. This is the counsel of God. This is what God wants us to do. This is what the God-fearing Jews want us to do. And He will do like the Torah wants us to. And therefore, Shechanya ben Yechiel, which, by the way, also we pointed out, Shechanya ben Yechiel said, we were treacherous against God. So the Gemara in Sanhedrin points out, what do you mean we were treacherous against God? It wasn't we. He didn't do it. It was the Jews. So from here we learned out the idea of taking the blame for someone else. And the Gemara asks, where did Shechanya ben Yechiel learn it? He learned it from Yehoshua and so forth, right? The Gemara traces back Shmuel HaKatan and all the various Tanoim who learned this behavior from earlier generations. Okay. So they give Ezra the following issue: Kum ki alacha hadavar. Get up, the matter rests on you. V'anachnu imach, we're with you. Chazak v'aseh, be strong and act. Vayakom Ezra, Ezra got up. Vayashba Sari HaKohanim Alevim, and he made the officers swear, B'chol Yisrael, Lasos Kadavar Hazeh, to do this, in other words, to effectively remove all of their non-Jewish wives. Vayishaveo, they swore. Vayakom Ezra, Ezra got up, Mufnei Beis Holikim, from before the Beis HaMikdash, Vayelech Alishkas Yehochanan ben Eliashiv, he goes to a special chamber. And remember, Ezra was still fasting. Vayelech Shem, he goes there, Lechem lo yachal, mayim lo shasa, he didn't eat, he didn't drink, he did not break his fast. Ki mis'abel al mal hagoyla, he continuously mourns the treachery of the goyla. Vayaviru kol b'Yehuda v'Yerushalayim, they issued forth the following news report: L'chol b'nei hagoyla, l'hikavetz Yerushalayim, everyone needs to return to gather in Jerusalem. And whoever doesn't come is in big trouble, is in really hot water. If by 3 days you don't come, by the council of the officers and the elders.
Why just in Yehuda?
According to many, only they returned. Because the Ramban had an explanation that the other Shvatim were bound by the oath that they took not to return to Eretz Yisrael. They were not allowed to return.
One of the Shvatim, they were gone.
Yeah, I think the Ramban.
Yeah, I know.
He brings over here. The Ramban in the Sefer HaGeula says that the 10 Shvatim remained in the Galus, except for a few from Ephraim and Manasseh. The others did not return either because Kairish's permission was specifically given to Yehuda and to the descendants of Yehuda, or alternatively, the other Shvatim were bound by their oath.
What was the oath?
The oath not to return. If you look in the Gemara Ksubis, quoting the Pesukim in Yirmiyah, we took an oath not to return. Right? That's the big debate whether today even we're allowed to return. But right. So the other Shvatim were bound. So the question is, and how about Yehuda? So the other Shvatim.
And how about Levi?
Levi is also part of it.
The other Shvatim were released from their oath. Why? Because the other Shvatim were released from their oath when Yirmiyah prophesied that they'll return after 70 years. But the Aser Shvatim that were taken into Galus well before the others, so they were not given that prophecy that they would return in 70 years, and they were still bound by the oath of not to return. That's the Ramban's possibility. Okay.
So if they knew, then they knew where they were. Why don't we know where they are now? Okay, I don't expect an answer. So continue.
It says that the second part of the pasuk is l'chol b'nei hagolah, right? The Kavetz Yerushalayim. But there, that's a more generalized category. You could say it would include the people in Babel who didn't show up yet.
Possibly.
So first we have the Prat, Yehuda and Yerushalayim, and it's a Chol B'nei Hagolah.
Okay.
Good question.
Okay, good point. Okay. Whoever doesn't come in 3 days, by the council of the ministers and elders, all of his possessions will be condemned, and he will be separated from the rest of the congregation. In other words, Ezra is imposing extra legal measures that whoever doesn't listen to him, his possessions will be right, appropriated and removed from their and taken away from them. Hefker bezdin hefker. And we also pointed out that the Malbim said that if the entire nation. Now, how does Ezra have the authority to impose these penalties?
Got it from the king.
So okay, but Ezra is not the king. He's not a melech.
But he's like a governor.
He's not a melech. So the Malbim learns that if a congregation accepts upon themselves the matter with the shvuah, the congregation then is elevated to the status as king. The congregation.
The shul was, wait a minute, we have to separate out the two items here.
Yeah.
The shul was that we're going to get rid of our goyish wives and maybe goyish children.
And as part of that is, and if we don't, that's the continuation. And v'choil asher, in other words, then it continues, and whoever doesn't, their possessions will be appropriated.
Really?
So
that was part of the Shiur too.
Yeah.
Which tribe was Ezra from?
Ezra was a Kohen.
Was it Kohen?
Ezra was a
No,
Kohen.
it was a cipher. That's what. That's a cipher. It was a Kohen, I didn't know that.
Okay. So, we continue. He will be separated from the rest of the congregation. You see? That's all that gathered. Only from Yehuda and Binyamin.
Well, here it says Binyamin, the previous pasuk doesn't mention that. It says Kol Yehuda Yerushalayim. Yerushalayim was in Binyamin's Chelek. But Binyamin's Chelek included other than Yerushalayim, no?
Okay.
So it's not consistent.
But apparently the other Shvatim were not part of this. L'shloishes hayamim. Hu chodesh hatshi. They came in the 9th month. Again, Ezra came up in the 5th month. They came in the 9th month. Be'esrim b'chodesh. Now what's the 9th month? Right? Nisan, Iyar, Sivan, Tammuz, Av, Elul, Tishrei, Cheshvan, Kislev, the 20th of Kislev. Vayishvu chala'am b'choiv beis Olekim. The people settled in the plaza of the Beis HaMikdash. Not the Plaza Hotel, the area before the Beis HaMikdash. Maridim al hadavar, trembling over the matter, umei hagshamim, and also trembling over the rain, because it was a rainy season, it was cold, it was oppressive, so they were scared of the impending message of Ezra, and they were very uncomfortable by the weather. Vayakam Ezra HaKohen. Vayomer aleim, atem altem, you were treacherous. Vatoshivu nashim nachlios, you gave, you secured, you kept foreign women. Lahaisif alash masiso, to increase, to add, to compound Jewish guilt. V'ata now tenu soida l'Hashem l'kev v'seichem. Give
thankfulness.
Make confession to Hashem, the God of your fathers. V'asur tzana, do His will. V'hibadlu me'amei haaretz, separate from the nations of the land. In other words, get rid of your non-Jewish son-in-laws and your non-Jewish wives.
So what did he do? Just throw them out?
Okay, so that's what he wanted to do. Throw them out.
And what about the daughters that married these guys?
Throw out the guys. Kick them out of the house.
And the daughters you take back?
Change the locks.
And the daughters you take back?
Why not?
What do you mean the daughters?
What about the... Okay.
No, the non-Jewish daughter-in-laws, get rid of them also.
I meant the Jewish daughters.
Well, they're considered Jews.
They're Jews. Why should we?
Women,
right?
And then after that, they marry Jewish guys.
They can marry. Yeah, they can do it. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Not a Cohen though.
They're also out.
Children are out.
You want to know non-Jewish children?
Yeah. Anything that came out of that?
Yeah.
They're
Kahanim become cholo.
They're not Jewish children. They're Jewish children.
Kahanim that marry
They don't daughters.
the children are cholo.
So they get rid of the children, huh?
Oh,
that's the question.
Get rid of the Jewish.
We're talking about the ones that had non-Jewish women.
You're talking, so those are sons.
The non-Jews are the ones that from the sons, not the daughters.
Right.
Maybe that's included in Hibadu Me'amei Haras. That maybe that includes the non-Jewish children, but it doesn't say explicitly. Vayanu Chala'am. The people answered Vayomer, and they said Koil Gado in a loud voice. Cain, yes, Kidvarcha Aleinu Lasos, as you say we need to do. But they said, Ezra, come on, take a chill, relax. You can't immediately impose this penalty on the people. First of all, so many people intermarried. And the weather is bad. What are you going to do? You're going to kick them out? And they're going to live outside in the rain? Aval ha'amrav, there's so many people. V'ha'is geshamim. They ain't kayach lamei b'chutz. They don't have the ability to stay outside. V'hamalacha lo liyom echad v'lo l'shnayim. This is not a 1 or 2 day job. Ki hirbinu l'vshaya b'davar hazeh. The people have sinned tremendously. So what you got to do is you have to set up a system to slowly weed out the wrongdoers. Yamduna sarenu.
You got the guys who set up Obamacare, they could handle this job.
Yamduna sarenu. let us appoint officers, l'chol hakol, v'chol asher be'areinu, and everyone in our cities, ha'hoishiv nashim nachriyos, that has kept non-Jewish wives, yavai le'itim mizumanim, let them come at designated times. In other words, let's make a process over here. Whoever married goyim, let them check in at a certain date. And this should be overseen by the Ziknei Ir v'Ir v'Shefteha, Imayim Ziknei Ir v'Ir v'Shefteha, with the elders of every city and their judges, Ad lahashiv charoin afal ekeinu mimenu, until we're able to cause God's anger to retreat. Ad ladavar hazah, up till this point.
Were they allowed to be Megaya? Any of them that wanted to?
Well, that would be
family with the kids.
That would be very problematic, because obviously they're converting l'shem ishus, and someone who converts for marriage is not a good ger. So, if after if they married goyim and then afterwards, they did not want. Obviously, they apparently did not want to utilize that. They want to get them out. Now, were there any opposers to this plan? Did anyone say, "I don't like this idea"? Now these two guys, their names are recorded for all history, for embarrassment. Only two naysayers. Ach Yonasan ben Asael, v'Yachazia ben Tikva amdu azos. They are the only ones who stood up against this. U'Meshulam v'Shabsai halevi azarum, and they were assisted by Meshulam and Shabsai. That is how Rashi learns. They stood up lekanter. However, not everybody learns like that. Some learn that these were the ones that really supported Ezra, right?
Read it that way.
Amdu al zois. They were mechazik.
Why the word ach? Ach is usually in a negative form.
Right.
No?
These were the only people that took the initiative to back up Ezra. I mean, only these guys. But in any event, however you learn, Vayasu came b'nei hagoyla. The b'nei hagoyla followed suit. Vayibadlu Ezra, and Ezra separated. Vayibadlu Ezra HaKoyin, and Ezra HaKoyin separated Anoshim, men, Rashi Ha'avos. Anoshim here, I think Rashi in Parshas Shalach says, Kol Anoshim Shabamikra Lashon Chashivos. Right? Anoshim means Chashva people. Rashi Ha'avos, heads of families, Leveis Avoisam, V'chulam B'Shemos, all with their designated prestigious names. Vayeshvu B'yoyim Echad L'Chodesh HaAsiri, and they sat on the first day of the 10th month, first day of Teves, L'Daryosh Hadavar. Now what does it mean, L'Daryosh Hadavar? How many times in Tanakh does the word L'Daryosh appear? Yaakov, how many times in Tanakh?
Does it come from the word Russia?
You tell me.
They had a hearing. They had a hearing amongst the elders.
They checked it out.
To discuss the process and the progress of the project.
So, Rabbi, it's important to know, whenever you want to know how to pronounce a word, the pre-eminent authority on Dikduk is the Mincha Shai. Mincha Shai. Mincha Shai says this is the only time that this word appears. He says, Ein lo shenis b'mikra, does not appear anybody else, and it comes from a lashon of drasha. Right? And it means to seek out, to search out. So meaning on the first day of the 10th of the 10th month, they investigated. Vayichalu vakoil, and they finished the whole job
In one day. That's amazing.
No, we'll see how long it took. Vayichalu vakoil, that the anoshim hahoishivu noshim nachriyos, that the men that kept foreign wives, they finished them all off ad yom echad lachodesh harishon, until the first day of the first month, which is the month of Nisan. In other words, it took 2 months.
Wait a minute, they didn't start till the first of Teves?
They didn't sit down.
It all along.
Well, on the first day of the 9th month, they accepted upon themselves to start the process. The process began the next month, and it was completed over the course of 2 months.
So they had a month to discuss the logistics and the process. They implemented it on the 1st of Teves, and they finished by the 1st of Nisan.
Yes.
That's what happened.
Yes. Now,
Pretty good.
now,
All this is
They must
very
be good logisticians.
going back to when the Jews said Na'aseh v'nishma, and here they did something in the same thing.
yeah,
And,
you're right.
and plus something else also.
The pasuk, "Vayanu chol hakol, vayomru kol gadol," right, is very reminiscent of "Vayanu kol ha'am vayomer na'aseh v'nishma."
Right.
That pasuk is very, very similar. In fact, do you have a Chumash here, Mekoros Gedolos, Shemais?
Yes.
I want to take a look at something. That's why we quoted, the Medrash says, is there a Yalkut Shemaini here?
Yes. What?
Ezra. If it's a 2-volume one, I need a second volume.
Whoa.
Okay.
Thank you. Right, what's the pasuk by Na'aseh v'nishma? First of all, you have to know what Parsha is Na'aseh v'nishma.
Oh,
Mishpat is the end of the
Right.
Okay.
Yanikolom Yachtov.
thank you.
Okay. Vayikaseh v'arbis vayikro b'ozneim vayomru kol asher dibar Hashem Na'aseh v'nishma. That's what it says in Mishpat. In Yisrael, what does it say? It says,
and when Yisro and they had elders, judging, and Yisro tells Moshe later on also the same thing. You should take, for each group a shayfer.
Vayanu chol ha'am yachtav vayomru kol asher dibar Hashem Na'aseh.
Remember something.
Yeah, but I'm just.
But they didn't say Na'aseh v'nishma, they said Na'aseh. Who will do? Na'aseh v'nishma came by Mishpat.
Okay. That's what the Medrash in the Yalkut Shmoni compares Ezra's ascent to Moshe's ascent. There is a comparison between Ezra and Moshe Rabbeinu. Okay, now we're going to give a list of the bad guys. Now, the Navi records for all time exactly who married Goyim. Okay, can you imagine?
That didn't send them away.
Look what it says. No, they did send them away. But even though they sent them away, we're recording exactly who did the Avera.
So why publicize? If they send it and if they did tshuva.
This is part of their tshuva. They get the embarrassment of the Avera. Let's see what it says. Vayimatzei mibnei haKohanim. They found among the children of the Kohanim, Asher hoishivu nashim nachrios, that had married foreign wives, mibnei Yeshua ben Yoitzadak, from the children of Yeshua ben Yoitzadak, V'Yachav and his brothers, Ma'aseya, Eliezer, V'Yariv, Ugedalia. Now, who was this Yeshua? This Yeshua was Yehoshua Kohen Gadol. Can you imagine? The sons of the Kohen Gadol had married Goyim. Even though Yehoshua was one of the primary builders of the Beis HaMikdash, his sons intermarried. And that's why if you look in Zechariah, Paragimel, the Hasatain Oimed al Yaminai, Lasitnai, because his children intermarried and he didn't protest. And then the next pasuk says, Rebbe Shem says, Yigar Hashem v'cha Hasatan, Yigar Hashem haboicha b'Yushalayim, haloi zeh, haloi zeh, ud mutzu meish. Yeah?
So
Yeah. And they said, in other words, Rebbe Shem said, leave off. He already got his punishment. Okay.
So the Avera was that he didn't protest?
The Avera was he didn't protest.
And they did it anyway. So, but if he would have protested, and they would have done it anyway, he wouldn't be down here.
But, I don't know. I don't know what his name is here, because they married Goyim. Why was he punished? Why was he burnt? He was burnt because he didn't protest.
He didn't what?
Protest. Okay?
If he would have protested, And they would have done it anyway, so
then it would have been a worse Avera.
no, it wouldn't.
Okay, Rabbi, so for the rest of the Sefer, it's just a list of people's names who married Goyim. Now, Rabbi say in the Parsha of Sav, nothing is said about people who had good children.
And then he was
Good news doesn't sell, man.
Right? So that's why over here we have on the sheet something very important. A story about someone who actually had good children. Sorry, that's someone who had good children.
Rabbi, the last pasuk says, "Kol ila nasu nashim nashiyos." So, but talk about those that married male goyim. Doesn't seem to be addressed. And then it says, "V'yesh mehem nashim." I don't know what that means.
Okay, some of them married women and actually had children, right? And we're going to see they actually they remove their children as well. Okay.
What about marrying of males of anashim nakriyim?
So that we're not listing the names of those people.
Why?
Maybe it was for a man to go out and take a woman, so that it was his choice. A woman who was taken sometimes is somewhat beyond her control. Okay, Rabbi said, take a look at number 1. The Yalkut Shimoni says like this.
Is this hand?
The Yalkut Shimoni says like this. Tanad ve'Eliyahu. Ma'isa b'koyin echad. There's a story about a koyin. Shehaya yarei shamayim b'seiser, who was a secret, God-fearing person. V'hayulai asara banim. He had 10 children, me'isha achas, from one woman. Shisha zecharim, 6 male, v'arba nekevas, 4 female, 6 boys, 4 girls. And what did this God-fearing kohen do? U'b'chol yom haya mispalel. Every day he would daven. U'mishtateach, and prostrate himself. U'malachech afar b'lshoinai, and he would kick up dust in his tongue. In other words, he would daven and daven and daven, Kedei shelo yavai echad mehem lidei avera, that none of his children should come to sin, v'lidei davar mechur, to come to do something improper. Amru, they said about him, this is someone who put in tremendous efforts, extraordinary efforts, in praying for the future spiritual security of his children.
Wait a minute, but
let's see.
You're a parent. You just can't close yourself up.
Doesn't say all he did is just that.
You have to be a parent.
Let's see. Amru, layatzis oisa shana shlema. That year was not complete. Ad sheba Ezra, till Ezra came up. Vehela HaKadosh Baruch Hu Yisrael miBavel. HaKadosh Baruch Hu took Klal Yisrael out of Bavel. Vehela oisa kohen. That kohen was among them, and that kohen did not die. V'lo nichnas HaKohen lo'olamai ad shera Kohanim, Gedolim, Upirchei Kahuna, Mibanav, Ubnei Banav, Ad Chamishim Shana. He did not leave the world until he saw children, Iniklach, Kohanim, Gedolim,
50 years.
For 50 years! And only then did he pass away. But Allah hu Omer, and about such a person it says, B'tach v'Hashem v'aseitiv. So we learn from this medrash is that perhaps the most critical, important ingredient in raising good children is tefillah. Tefillah, tefillah, tefillah. That is the key ingredient. Of course, you have to be a parent also. But that, it goes without saying. But an extremely, extremely underestimated and vital ingredient in raising good children is constant tefillah. In fact, when I was in Eretz Yisrael, so I had the opportunity to visit a very, very old tzaddik. His name was Rav Mordechai Zuckerman. So Chatzak the Brach, he passed away a few years ago. He was like one of the last remaining Talmidim of the Chafetz Chaim. He was in his high 90s. I remember I had the opportunity to meet him twice. I got 2 very good brachas from him. And they recently published a 2-volume biography on him. But in the 5-volume biography on the Chafetz Chaim, they interviewed him. They interviewed Reb Zuckerman. They asked Reb Zuckerman, you're a student of the Chafetz Chaim. Chafetz Chaim lived in a Dar Deya, a generation of Gedolei Yisrael, tremendous Gedolim. And yet, in a way, of all the Gedolei Yisrael, I mean, Chafetz Chaim, everybody knows the Chafetz Chaim. Mi Pivanu Chayim, Mishnah Berurah. Who doesn't learn Mishnah Berurah? Who doesn't learn Sefer Chafetz Chaim? What did he have
special
that is outstanding, perhaps more than anybody else? What was his secret ingredient? So, among other things, Rav Mordechai Zuckerman says that it was the tears of his mother. His mother was known always to shed very, very bitter tears that her son should grow up to be an Erlich Hayid. In fact, the story goes that one time they brought the Chafetz Chaim, the Tehillim of his mother, and the Chafetz Chaim was so moved. He said with tremendous emotion, he said, you know how many tears my righteous mother shed that I should grow up to be a kosher Jew? And I read recently that the daughter of the Chafetz Chaim said over that the Chafetz Chaim's mother, her grandmother, was not any extraordinary woman. She was not like a miracle worker. She was not a big Rebbitzin. She wasn't well known. And by the end of her life, when Chafetz Chaim's reputation spread far and wide, so people used to flock to her. What'd you do? What'd you do? So she said, you're coming to the wrong person. I'm not any different than you are. I'm not any different than anybody else. She was a Pashta lady. Many Pashta ladies. And they used to press her, but you had to do something. Maybe there's some mitzvah that you did. Maybe there's some minhag that you did that we could learn from. So finally she said, you know what? I'm not any better, any worse than anybody else. But I'll tell you a little story. She said that before my chasana, as I'm going to the chuppah, my mother called me aside, and she said she wanted to speak to me for a few moments. And she said like this. She said, my beloved daughter, she said, as a Jewish woman, your responsibility is you have to raise kosher children. So I ask you one thing. Whenever you have a free moment, you put the potatoes on the fire, you're waiting for the potatoes to cook, you're putting
say a prayer.
Take out the Tehillim and daven for your children. I said, that's what I did. Every day after my housework, I had a few moments, I was peeling the potatoes, I was cutting the onions, I had a few seconds here, I was taking my kids to school, I said tefillos that Yisrael Meir should grow up to be a kosher Yid. The Brisker Rav, one time one of the Gdolei Rashivas in Eretz Yisrael came to visit the Brisker Rav, and Brisker Rav had many sons, and all of his sons were big Talmidei Chachamim, and he's sitting around the table giving shiur to his sons, dealing with each one in their way. And this great Rosh Yeshiva, unfortunately his son became a member of the Communist Party. So he said to the Brisker Rav, what's your secret? What's your secret? What's your trick? What's your technique? Says the Brisker Rav, there are no tricks. There are no techniques. All there is Tehillim and tears. That's all. That's the only trick. Another time, they asked the Brisker Rav, and listen to this. Brisker Rav said that whenever he would rock his children to sleep at night, some parents sing their kids lullaby and good night, right? So he would cry, he would cry bitter tears that his children should go up to be Yirei Shamayim. And now I'm going to share with you my all-time favorite Gadol story. Okay? Someone once came to the Stipler, and he said, Stipler, give me a bracha that I should have Erlicha children. Okay? So we know the Stipler was the father of one of the Gdolei Hadar today, Reb Chaim Kanievsky. So the Stipler said, a bracha? I can't give you a bracha. You're the parents. You need to daven. You can't get anything in this world unless you daven. Said the Stipler, until this very day, I cry every day that my son should grow up good. At that time, Reb Chaim Kanievsky was already 52 years old. So that's the limud. The limud is that, we try different techniques, we try different tricks, and we try our best, but ultimately this is something that requires a lot of investment of tefillah. That's why you have on your sheets over here, look at number 2. You have on your sheets, it's on the Mishnah Berurah. Mishnah Berurah is really quoting the Shlah HaKadosh. These are mamish the words of the Shlah in his commentary on Masechta in Shar HaOis Ois Dalet. He says like this.
Tamid Tia.
He says, "V'tamid tia tfilas ha'av ha'ein shigura b'fiyam." The prayers of a father and mother should be very accustomed, very fluent in their mouth. Lehispalal al b'neiim, to pray for their children. Sheyu lomdei Torah, that their children should learn the tzaddikim, they should be righteous. Ubali midas tovas. In other words, this is not something you daven for, Erev Yom Kippur, or something you daven for once in a while. Mol. Shagor, at all times. And here are the specific intervals that a person should daven. And not just for children, for grandchildren, for great-grandchildren. He says, V'yichavi ma'oid. A person should have tremendous kavanah. B'birchas avarabba. In the bracha of avarabba, when you say the words, V'sein b'libeinu bina. And u'b'birchas haTorah, when you say, V'niya anachnu v'tzetzoenu kulanu yodei shemecha. And when you say the words in Uvalasia and Laman Lo Niga, Larik, Lo Neled, Labahala. Right? And these are, during these intervals, a person should have special kavanah. Now we know that the Shloah HaKadosh actually composed a special tefillah that parents are recommended to say. And the Shloah HaKadosh said that a very opportune time to say it is Erev Rosh Chodesh Sivan. When's Rosh Chodesh? Next Friday? So if anybody wants a copy of the tefillah, I have a copy for you over here.
Why is the Erev Rosh Chodesh Sivan such a hush of a day for this tefillah?
I'm not sure. Well, Sivan is the month of Kabbalah HaTorah, and we know Erev Rosh Chodesh is a time of Rachamim. It's Yom Kippur Katan. So the Erev of Rosh Chodesh, so the month of the giving of the Torah, he says even though he doesn't have any evidence that this is an opportune time, but nevertheless, I believe his words are. His heart tells me, I think he says, Libi Aymerli, my heart tells me, he has the intuition that this is a very opportune time to pray. So this is one of the limudim that we learn from Sefer Ezra, that the Medrash is telling us that this Kohen, who was a very modest, soft, God-fearing Jew, he merited to have 10 children, tzaddikim, tzidkaniyos, because of his incessant prayers.
This is Seamus. This sheet is Seamus.
Okay. A second.
Didn't you say that the Bishgura, one of his children, became a communist?
No, I didn't say that.
Someone else.
Who came to
The right church with the wrong pew.
Yeah, no, not him. Okay, so let's do one more pasuk. So the children of Yeshua. So here, this is a very frightening thing. Here, the Medrash says about the Kohen, who was a very secret, God-fearing Jew, and he had 10 children. And here, the Kohen Gadol, right? So that shows that a person needs extra special siyata d'shmaya, extra special tefillos. So pasuk Yates, Vayitnu Yadam, they advised these people, Lahoitzin Hashem, to let go of their wives. Va'ashemim el tzayin, they should bring as a carbon asham a ram al ashmasim for their guilt. Now Rashi says this asham was a hayrasha. However, we're going to see Mitzvah Hashem next time, and hopefully next time we'll finish the sefer. And maybe someone will bring in some a little refreshments, even though
liquid.
What? Liquid, solid liquids, whatever you want to bring in. And but I don't think you make a siyum until you have to do nechemia also. But according to what we learned on Friday, each one also, it's separate but the same. So I think we can have something. So kol mi sheroitze lahavi yavi. The tavayol of bracha. Have a wonderful day.
You've just experienced another Torah class brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.